Well, he's coming. It's Advent 1. The year has turned. Now the course reading of the gospel week by week is Mark instead of Matthew. Things will change a little bit in terms of the tone of the liturgy because it's Advent. And when we look at all of these things happening in sum, we have to say, well, something is about to happen. Indeed it is. Advent is about preparing for Christmas, about the celebration year upon year of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, that one who last week was coming in glorious majesty as Christ the King, and who this week we speak of in terms of a yet unborn child, one who is coming among us for purposes that we can only vaguely imagine at a personal level, and for purposes that we hope will in fact redeem the world, one person at a time. And so it is that we expect. We expect, and there needs to be some expectation. You need to go to the closet where you keep all of the decorations. Yeah, y'all are chuckling. Is this like an entire room with decorations in it that you keep stored? Maybe just a couple of boxes. Don't put them up yet, please. Let the curmudgeon priest suggest that you let Advent happen before you do that. But in the meantime, you're expecting those things. And they are symbols and images of Christmases past in which are rooted all of your hopes for this year. That ornament that was given to you by your parents when you were 4. An ornament that in your mid-60s you cannot now fully remember a time when you didn't have. That's a good anchor. To look in the old folio books and see the Thomas Nast cartoon of Santa Claus. Nast gave us that jolly image taken from Clement Clark Moore's A Visit from St. Nicholas, and he sort of invented the look of Christmas, at least Father Christmas, about 150 years ago. Be prepared, because you will reenact an almost 200-year-old custom in the English church of bringing a perfectly functional live tree that you have killed into your house. And upon it you will festoon all of these ancient decorations and perhaps some new ones. This is a focal point in which the new, as they come among you, those children and grandchildren, will have a chance to learn to hang tinsel. We do not throw gobs of tinsel, do we? Shake your head with the priest. We don't do this. We hang it an icicle at a time, meditatively, nearly a prayer on each one. These are all things by which we remember where we have been, and in them we set our expectations for what is coming. Expectations can be good. They really can. They can also limit us in ways that ace out what God may have in mind for us. It is very easy to have so many expectations about the holidays, about all of the events by which we mark the holidays, that we really end up yearning for what used to be. And that's difficult. That's difficult. Because this year will never measure up to those, friends. Your memory is a self-editing sense. Over about 1 million years, you have evolved as a glorious creature of God to try to remember more good than bad. But in that is rooted an expectation, a firm look, a fairly clear picture in your mind's eye and in the yearnings of your heart about how it ought to go. About how it ought to go. I mean, you ask my children, it's not Christmas until I bring the standing rib roast to the table. And Daddy has to cook it. Nobody else does that. That's on me. And we all have filters like that, don't we? We all have those moments that fix the image. All good, but really incomplete and can be very limiting. Because when we try to hold on to the expectations, we have to do that in a way that perhaps does not give us the strength to remain open for what's coming. And that's the first problem. It's not what's coming. The proper question on the first Sunday of Advent is not what are you looking for, it is who are you looking for? This is a person. The Christ is an idea. The great Dutch theologian Edward Schillebeeckx wrote a 2-volume theology about Jesus, and he had to entitle one Jesus to talk about the one we would call the historical rabbi from Nazareth, and the second volume was called Christ, which talks about all the stuff upon which we load him, or with which we load him, his job, his function, his place in the universe. We're not waiting for an idea. This is one place where I think Advent really is a moment in liturgical time where anyone who is a mother gets it in a way that none of the rest of us do. Let me tell you what I mean. I don't want to speak for the pregnant women in the room or those who have been, those who are now mothers and perhaps grandmothers, and if blessed history has gone long enough, perhaps even great-grandmothers. But my guess is that when that child was in utero, you weren't waiting for an idea. You were waiting for a person. You were waiting for a life intimately entwined with yours in a particular way at that moment, and yet a life fully distinct from you. A life in which you have partnered with God to bring another soul onto this planet, breathing air. We are expecting someone, not something. And it is best when we are able to readjust our expectations and use a pronoun rather than just a noun, what? Or an idea, what? So who are we expecting? And how is it that we are able to treasure our memory and all of the things by which we signal to ourselves and one another the coming of this holy season, and in the same moment keep ourselves open for stuff that we cannot see yet, we cannot imagine, we don't know. We just don't know. Mothers and grandmothers among us, you had an idea, but you didn't know, did you? You had an idea who was coming, but not exactly. Not until that splendid moment which, like Isaiah says, comes suddenly. That moment when all of a sudden, I remember Gretchen looking at me and saying, I think we're doing something now. And I think that means the hospital. Got it, babe. All good. Had the ready bag packed and we went. But we could not have possibly predicted that time. And that's what Mark wants to hold in front of us. We do best at Christmas. We do best in our relationship with Jesus, the Christ, when we are able to be looking for someone and be open to the yet unknown possibilities of how this will come to us this year. You see, the best holidays are those where you carry forward all of those wonderful memories, not to be reenacted, but to be added to. It's a fundamental difference, isn't there? The same is true in our experience with God. I remember when God sort of nudged me at one point when I was 15 and said, I think you're going to be a priest. And here I am in my 70s, and I only know just a little bit more about who that person is. But I'm listening and I want to know more every day I breathe. I'm not alone in that. There's no particular virtue in my saying that. It simply represents the biddings of every heart in this house. The God that got you here instead of on the second tee at the local golf course at this hour is the God who continues to speak in your life. The God who is never fully finished. The God who ends up making every day of our lives the first Sunday of Advent. The God who says, I am already and I am not yet. I am coming in a way that will reveal myself to you as you have never seen me before. For some of us, that's at our personal death. For some of us, it will be in the changing of relationships. For good or ill, the pain of those going away and the joy of those beginning. But being open means not having full assumptions about exactly how it's going to go. The Messiah about whom Isaiah spoke in the first lesson was a Messiah that Isaiah saw 800 years before Jesus of Nazareth was born. And in 800 years, particularly the 800-year history that Israel experienced between Isaiah and Jesus coming, you can make a lot of assumptions, right? If I were to tell you Jesus is showing up for cocktails and dinner tonight at your house, you would probably be more concerned in preparing and not so much worried about any particular set of notions, except he's on his way, quickly. And the longer you have to wait, the easier it is to start accreting images, making assumptions. Oh, no. See, for me, Jesus is probably sort of looks like, I don't know, maybe Robert Young with nice silvery sideburns, a beautiful baritone voice. He rides a horse well. He has a clear sense of justice. He is willing to be merciful, and he knows when not to be in my terms. Those are all assumptions that are going to go by the board when I finally see him face to face. The same will be true for you. So how do we do this? We do this by being able to consciously, it's an act of the will, friends. It is an act of the will to suspend the expectation that draws a particular picture and to live deeply and richly in the expectation that says, I'm so looking forward to him. When we are able to do that, we do indeed have the expectations and the memories to which we add what this year will teach us in a way that no other year could possibly have taught us or ever will teach us in the future. We remain open. We remain clear that he is on his way. And what we want to do is to expect him not in a particular time frame, not in a particular form, but simply to know he's coming. He is coming in a way that life will be brought into the world in a new, probably inconvenient way. Those that think they know how it will go will be the most surprised, and perhaps not in a good way. Now, how we do this matters a lot because we are the church. We are given to each other as the church so that collectively we can hope. Collectively we can guide one another. Collectively we are able, given to one another as the church, to be a little smarter about this, a little more mature spiritually, to wait better. To wait better. Now, why does this have any particular meaning now? Well, friends, this is the first Sunday of Advent of the year in which someone is coming. by this time next year, in God's time, in the fullness of time, we have every reason to hope that the 44th rector of this parish will have been found. That person will have it dawn on them that, oh, I'm called here, and it'll dawn on us, wow, this is the one. How do we do that? All of you have a fixed expectation. Lie to the priest and tell me you don't. We want her or him to do this, to do that, to do the other thing. It's just like me wanting Robert Young to be Jesus. It's ridiculous. We set our hearts best to the work that God gives us to do when we are simply open to the fact that someone's coming. And we need to live that space and time with hope, with joy. As Jesus' friends who live in an old parish, doing his work as it comes to us to do it, and saying our prayers knowing that they will be answered. They will. Let me also hasten to add, and I want everybody looking right at me, the one who's coming isn't Jesus. The 44th rector of this parish will not be Jesus. Okay? Let's just settle that in our hearts and minds right now. While there is an advent not only of the Christ, but also of the 44th rector, those are two different people. And yet, the hope in which we live for one is a hope that will guide us in living toward the arrival of the other. So, like all of those mothers who know this instinctively, let us wait for a person. Let us wait for him, Jesus. Let us wait for him or her, next rector. And let us be about it in the business of hope. Let us be about it in the business of loving one another as we do. Let us be about it in a way that shows to the world, no matter who is signing the forms at Christ Church, Kent Island, Jesus is there. And if we can live in that way, we will embrace him as this baby when he comes in our liturgical time, and we will embrace the next ordained leader of this parish when she or he comes in God's time. This is the hope of the gospel. I believe it down to the soles of my feet, and I know you do too. So let us say our prayers and take up the glad business of waiting. Let us take up the glad business of waiting in hope. Amen.